friends. I'm just pulling up to this one, my fourth pickup this morning, early Wednesday morning. It'll be an airport trip, so a nice longer run. I have no idea what I have in store with this rider, but I usually have high expectations, so looking forward to connecting. Sometimes it's difficult at nighttime to like see the house numbers to find out where you're trying to pull up in front of, so that's why you'll see me peering and looking around, trying to get my bearing and the lay of the land to see which side of the street I should be looking at. And so I think I'm in the right place. I was thinking that the ascending or descending order was in a certain way, but I was wrong. So you're just kind of like looking ahead and forecasting. So you see one number or what you thought was one number, and then you reference another number so you know which way it's ascending or descending. But in this case, whereas I thought it was ascending, it's actually descending. And so that's why I was a little confused back there. But we're in front of the house. I like to pull right up so that they don't have too far to walk. I try to watch the terrain in which they're navigating to the vehicle. So if there's like a huge snow pile, I'll try to get into a spot where they don't have to go through the snow pile, right? Or if it's icy, I'll try to like watch for factors like that. But then also try to minimize the steps they have to the vehicle. And you'll see me jump out like now to go grab the bags. I'll be right back.
Oh, I got it. Thank you.
You must be Darilyn.
Yes, I am.
I don't need many Darilyns.
No, I bet. Nobody does.
My name is Biniam.
Oh, this is a little charger thing.
Those are chargers there. So desire. They have come in handy for a few along the way. But my name is Biniam, Darilyn.
What is it?
Biniam.
Biniam.
You got it.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise, dear.
What a nice morning ride.
I love your enthusiasm. You're
The
like,
last guy didn't even talk to me.
oh no.
Yeah. And I was going on a first date. I needed to talk.
Oh my darn tootin'. I wish I'd been that one. I would have had such a great
You
time.
could have coached me the whole way there.
I would have given you like the whole synopsis.
Yeah.
No. Here, let me give you a storyline that I find somewhat believable.
Huh.
So, for most drivers,
Yeah.
you've probably noticed we're immigrants.
Yeah.
I used to be an immigrant once upon a time, so I get that world. So imagine like being in a different country
Oh, yeah, I couldn't.
whereby the rules of etiquette are unspoken for the most part.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like we have a really harsh culture here that we are unfamiliar with unless we're without this culture. And so like a lot of the navigation socially,
Yeah.
we don't
He was
ever
an East Indian.
we don't
fellow.
ever really talk about these things, right? Because it's really like, and so them coming into this setting where there's a way of engaging, but no one ever talks about it, and so they never really have a way to learn how to navigate. On the one hand, is a challenge, and there are swift and harsh consequences for breaking these unspoken rules, right? And these are individuals who are coming from a different cultural background now in a job that one wonderfully puts food on the table for their families, most likely.
Yep.
However, in so doing though, like it's a public facing job with expectations that you already know the social cues of what to follow. But if you don't have access to those, I wonder if maybe their safest response is I'm just gonna like play the safe card and just not engage or take risks, because it is a risky thing, right? Like what I get to do and why I enjoy what I get to do is because I feel like I know this culture really well, you know? And so I know I know what to read and how to interpret. Whereas it's taken me a few decades to come to this space, you know.
Where are you from? Your English is perfect.
Why, thank you. I was young when I moved here.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in Kenya,
Cool.
but I was born in Ethiopia.
In where?
Ethiopia? Yeah.
That is.
It's not close by. It's a bit of a trek, yes.
Do you go back, or is your family here?
We moved here as a family.
Oh, okay.
Going back would have been a fantastic option if we'd had access, but it is inaccessible
Okay.
economically for a large family.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we were able to go back once, maybe 15, 16 years ago.
Wow.
So that was a nice visit,
Mm-hmm.
to be certain, yeah. But no, life has been primarily here, and this has now become home.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you always been in Calgary?
No, I grew up in BC.
Oh, where?
Kamloops? You're chuckling.
I
Why?
lived there for
Yo.
6 years, and then I just moved from Kelowna.
No.
Mhm.
When we first moved to here, we moved to Kelowna.
Yep.
And then we went to 100 Mile House, if you've heard of 100 Mile House.
Yeah.
Spent a few years there, and then eventually Kamloops.
Hmm.
Intrigue. Okay, you moved back from Kelowna. I just met someone who moved from here to Kelowna with relish. So, and he loves it there.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you find the opposite, where you're like missing here and you had to come back, or?
No, I'd only lived here once before, but I have lots of friends here.
Gotcha. By the way, just a quick interruption. Do you see the city skyline?
I love
But then look
skyline.
behind. Do you see the sunrise? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is amazing.
Oh, that is so glorious.
I love this drive down into downtown.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Okay, I interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay.
You were saying you did enjoy Kelowna.
Yeah, I did enjoy Kelowna. My daughter's there.
Yeah.
She just graduated from university
Amazing.
in December, and she's trying to decide whether to make the move or what to do.
I see.
But because Kelowna, excuse me, chewing,
That's okay.
fabulous place.
Yep.
In the winter
Yes.
or summer.
Yeah. In the summer, yes.
Overpopulated with tourists right now.
Oh.
Like, it gets so busy there. They have not improved their infrastructure at all.
Yeah.
And I hate being rude like this,
Yeah.
but the homeless problem
Yeah.
and the drugs
Yeah.
on the street
Yeah.
is close to Vancouver now.
Oh, wow.
So it is awful. And they're taking over, like, the waterfront
Yeah.
and, like, prime location where tourists
Yeah.
want to be. And
Sure.
it is such a problem,
I see.
you know?
I see.
And then
Yeah.
you get the winter
Yeah.
where it's gray
Yeah.
and socked in.
Yeah.
And I found as I got older that January, February, half of March,
Yeah.
it
Gotcha.
really started to, get
Yeah.
me down, right?
Yeah.
So, Calgary,
Yeah.
we moved for my husband's job.
Yeah.
We had a big acreage down south,
Mm-hmm.
like just by Okotoks.
Okay.
And then he dumped me.
Whoa. When did this happen?
September. No.
Like
Oh my God, almost a year ago now.
a year ago now. Well,
Mhm.
so that's fresh, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, this is after a lifetime and raising kids and a family and everything.
25 years.
And sorry, like it seems to have come out of nowhere.
Yep.
100%. Really?
I was in Kelowna
Yeah.
visiting our daughter,
Yeah.
and he phoned me.
Yeah.
Phoned me.
Okay.
Who phones?
And this is uncharacteristic.
Oh, yeah.
You never would have seen this coming.
No,
No telltale signs.
nothing. I mean, things were getting a little kind of boring
Yeah.
because he was working so much.
Yeah.
No word. I didn't even leave a crumb.
Darling, you're fine. You're my business, remember?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I leave crumbs in mine.
Thank you.
That's disrespectful. Anyways,
Yes.
so yeah. So I moved, like, where you picked me up,
Yes.
more inner city, and they gotta have some amazing girlfriends because they pretty much dragged me out of the gutter. So this trip, I found through my realtor, actually. We've become friends.
Yeah.
So we are going, it's called Camp Hoo-Ha.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. There's 14 women.
Yeah.
And not everyone knows each other.
Oh,
a lot of them are just singles. And not singles as in, like there's some married women, but just women.
On their own, yes.
Going, we have a big villa in Watuco.
Yeah.
We have like painting on the beach, tequila tastings, which I hate tequila, wine tastings, a chef, yoga, market tours, and we're right on the beach, big pool.
Amazing.
I know.
How long for? A week? 2 weeks?
No, I come back on Monday, 5 days only.
Okay, 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to get to know these individuals in a beautiful setting.
See, that's what I think too.
I think so.
I feel really good. As you can tell, I'm a very open book.
I appreciate
and a friendly person. I love people.
Yeah.
I love their stories. So I'm really, like when I phoned the organizer, there was one more, it was like a Julia Roberts moment where I was coming back from Kelowna and I'm on the plane and it's all snowy. And I've been told about this trip months before. And then I thought, no, I'm going to do it. And I just phoned her. There was one spot left.
Oh my goodness. It was meant to be.
Right? And so I just phoned her. I said, what is this?
Yes.
So these women do things every month. Like this group
my goodness.
holds, like, and you could go. So there was like an Italian cooking class that I tried to get into. But so they do events and cool stuff. So I said to her, I said, what are you? And she said, we're like Girl Guides, but for adults. And I'm like, okay, I failed Girl Guides after 2 things. Okay. Yeah, so
that's amazing.
I think it's going to be cool.
So I'm excited for that. I should have asked you when we left the house. You do have a passport with you, right?
Yep.
Good. And which
I double checked.
And which airline are you flying out with?
WestJet.
Cool.
So the international.
Of course. This sounds amazing. I'm excited for you, Darilyn.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's gonna just open my. I mean, meeting more people can never hurt, right?
You know, there's a risk there, though. But I think.
Why do you think there's a risk there?
There's a risk because whenever we open ourselves up to the unknown, for example, even this engagement here, I had high anticipation for it.
Why?
Because my expectation when I get the opportunity to connect with a fellow human being is it's going to be amazing. Yeah. So I speak into that opportunity, this forecast of I can't wait to understand and connect with this fellow human being in a plane whereby I get to see some things that they didn't have access to, and vice versa. They get to see me in a certain context that they didn't have access to. Like before you and I even had this conversation, we did not know anything about each other. You're just coming down the stairs. I'm like, oh, here's an attractive young woman coming out of the house. Yeah. I'm like, I did not know anything. If I were to tell your story without ever talking to you, it'd be way off base. Until I actually give you the courtesy of saying, can you tell me who you are? I don't have access. And when you willingly and voluntarily say, yeah, given the vibes and given how you're presenting yourself, here's what I have on offer in this moment. And that evolves and develops over time. And I think that in that context is something beautiful that happens whereby really deep, maybe momentary, but there's something tangible that happens in the way that says, this is worthwhile. This is time spent that was intentional, because there was a risk that was offered in saying, I don't know what you're going to do with what I'm about to share with you that I haven't given you until now. And then we start building on that and saying, okay, is there a foundation here for that sense of common existence, whereby we're like, here's what it means to be human being, fellow human beings. That's what I see in that whole exchange. Yeah. And that's why I say it's always a risk, because you're not guaranteed the good outcome.
Okay, what do you do? It's more than this.
Oh, I'm an Uberologist. So I do this job full time, and I do this job full time on purpose because of the opportunity I get to have this kind of connection. I mean, when would I ever have access to you specifically? Like, let's say you and I are in the store. We'd pass by each other, but there's no context in which I'd have the opportunity to do a deep dive with you. if that's an offer, for example, right? But in this setting here, this is a curated space whereby I'm offering you a service. Yes, I'm getting you from point A to point B, but I have more of a mission in saying, is there a way that I can see a fellow human being in a beautiful way that takes into cognizance like where their past has been and how they have shown up in this present moment? That's a beautiful gift.
Okay, but you're deeper than there's something. And see, I owned a hair salon.
Yes.
And then I did that all my life, and then
I could see it seems similar context, right?
Yes,
You're serving.
100%.
Yeah.
A different. I did it out of my home. I had a beautiful room, beautiful lighting, everything.
Yeah.
So I noticed when you're in an intimate space with someone.
Sure.
If you drove a bus and I went and sat at the back, although me, I would have sat at the front.
But, and I have driven a bus before.
Oh my God. You're in town?
Actually out in the countryside in Springbank. I used to be a school bus driver for years. And so even with those students, there was a connection there.
Yeah. But I'm this far from my client for sometimes 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Close quarters.
I knew probably more about their lives, some of them, than I bet you some of their family did.
I believe you.
Because I think, and it's touch too, like I was always touching
Absolutely,
them.
Physically,
right?
I hear you.
And, brushing their hair, doing their hair.
Intimate.
For the
Absolutely.
99% of the time, it was a very positive experience.
For
People
sure.
left there feeling good. So I felt the more I offered the experience of me and that connection, and I'm not a conceited person, but they never left me. My retention level of clients, because there was that connection.
Absolutely, it's tangible, isn't it? Now, in contrast, here's the thing. Here, you and I don't, like, you have physical touch with your clients. That's intimate. I don't have physical touch with my clients because that's inappropriate. That's out of bounds per se. But here's the real thing, though. There's still a deep level of intimacy, even though I never touch you physically, because you've shown me your soul. In a similar way that you also had the same. Now, with my close group of friends, there's touch for sure. When new people come in, there isn't until there's that established rapport there. But I went on a date last night. That's why I'm saying I wish I'd been your driver for your date. But on my date last night that I went to, first date, and it was wonderful, beautiful, deep conversation, and there was an intimacy there as well. Even though, I mean, we hugged and that's about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? But there's in my observation culturally, I perceive most of us want to experience this deep level of connection, this deep way of being touched. But it's a risky thing to do that, because to do that, one has to open up. And for most of us, myself included once upon a time, there's a fear element of what happens when we open up, because we've learned at a young age, Darilyn, what happens when we open up and express who we are. And those formative young years, we have familiar acquaintance with the response when someone said, you're gross, or yuck, or like you're weird, or whatever it is. These kind of responses that helped us understand, oh, that wasn't a fun experience. And that's what happened when I opened up. So we've over time developed this ability to close down and keep that zone inaccessible until someone makes it safe enough again. And so we're really walking around wanting to be seen and touched, but it's scary because we've felt that ouch factor over time. Do you know what I'm saying? And as a result, we want to be touched, but we don't have the capacity to open up because that's a risky zone. And so the best that we can reach by way of feeling that intimacy for grown-ups now, it's more like how can we connect physically, and that's intimate when you disrobe, but far more scarier is to disrobe your heart, to be able to take off those veils and say, okay, I'm going to let you see what it really means to be me, at the risk that you'll say that ick factor once upon a time. I'm going to face that fear and hope that I find a safe landing spot with you. That's the intimacy that I wonder that is maybe there's a famine in general culturally for that kind of intimacy. That's my thought process from my observations.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because after like what I've been through, you learn a lot about, and you do protect yourself.
Yeah.
Like
appropriately so, because it's an unsafe world out there.
Yeah.
And so the real skill becomes, how do we learn where to nuance the safe spaces. How do we ascertain a person's intentions? Because there's a lot who present really well initially, but then eventually turn out to be bankrupt because they don't have the currency necessary for holding such a space of vulnerability, tenderness, safety, all the things that are facilitating that, right? Yeah.
Oh, I live that.
I believe you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's no wonder that with your clientele, you were able to curate a safe space where they could open up in a ways that wasn't on offer for those who they're close to or living with, per se. I mean, here's the thing. I have really close friends, and in my friendship with them, even females, I'm far more intimate with them than they are with their romantic partners.
Oh, I believe that.
Right? Again, just because there's a cue they're missing for many people and saying, what does this look like and how can I curate that for myself? How can I experience such a setting? So even like this conversation, I mean, I'm not surprised that we're at this deep level. But no, I'm not surprised just because, like I said, this is the forecast that I have when I have the opportunity to connect with someone. I have no idea where we're going to go in the conversation. I have no clue. But this comes about when we're willing to mutually say, I'm going to walk into that thin ice, perceived thin ice, and hope that it holds both of us while we explore that deep level that comes to those who are willing to take the risk.
But it's so funny, like I did, short story, but I kind of been dating this guy, just super casual.
Absolutely, yeah.
Same thing, great conversation.
Yeah.
Not a ton of intimacy. And then yesterday, and it's been really nice.
Yeah.
And I started to feel a safe space, but I'm guarded.
Yeah.
And then yesterday it was like as cold as ice. And I'd always said I don't like texting.
Yeah.
You know, for very long because
texting is just for the brief details.
Yes.
Let's get to face to face, right? Yeah.
So it's funny that I'm meeting you right now because just even this morning I'm thinking, okay, he knew I was going on this trip today. Him being cold yesterday, you know, and kind of shutting down. I don't
resonate.
That's not fair, but I find now my guard's up, my wall's up because of what I went through a year ago. You know, so it's, I don't know.
May I give you some suggestions to consider?
Yes, please.
In that realm where you experience him drawing back, maybe it was in relation to this or not, I'm not sure. The tendency that I also resonate with once upon a time was I'm also now going to shrink back as well too, because I felt that shrinking away, the perceived shrinking away, right? But there's something to be said for the courtesy of giving someone their voice and saying, here's what I'm seeing or experiencing, here's the story that's going on in my mind, this is what seems to make sense for me, but I want to give you the fairness of telling me your story because I don't want to presume my story on top of your intentions. So would you be willing to tell me what's going on in your mind, in your heart, when I'm experiencing this? What was going on for you? Was I just reading into things, or did you have something similar to what I was describing with different intentions or catalysts that were there? When you draw someone out that way, that's again walking back into the ring. That's a scary zone. That's the risk factor because you're experiencing the ouch factor, which once upon a time we learned how to draw back again, right? But this time it's a different zone to say, I'm going to walk even further into this, and that's intimacy. That's vulnerability, where you're saying, I'm feeling a little bit scared right now. I'm feeling whatever it is, and this is the story in my mind that really makes sense at present. Could you tell me what the story was in your mind? Because I would love to have mine rectified if it needs to be realigned, and I want to give you the fairness for that. Maybe there was something I didn't see that is legitimate or whatever, right? But when you give them that opportunity, you can tell very quickly, Darilyn, are they of good quality or not? Are they willing to walk back in and say, oh, you're totally right, I was this, and giving them that opportunity to also express vulnerability because that's an invitation? Or are they dismissive, saying you saw nothing, or gaslighting, or whatever, it's all you, or whatever? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it gives you more opportunity when you walk back into the ring for confirmation in a fair way. Instead of you telling their story now, you're giving them the opportunity to tell their story, and the way they tell their story is really telling of which way you're going to pivot. Are you going to progress forward and say, I'm glad we worked through this? Or is it more like, thanks for confirming for me, this is a no, per se? But then that way you have clarity of mind that you're doing your own work to meet that individual that you're considering in that space where you've given them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. But don't you think fear plays a factor sometimes too?
Absolutely.
And fear is such...
It's compelling, I know.
Debilitating.
It is. Now, I would discourage you from doing what I just suggested if it was a conversation of safety. In that case, where you're not sure that your safety is intact, then I'd be saying follow your gut instinct and say, I'm sorry, we're done, and pull up. Like, there's no... And I say it especially to women who that is a significant concern to be factored in, right? I would say hell yes to that. That's a tough one. This is why I would have loved to be your driver yesterday.
Yeah, I was on the weekend.
Because I'm opinionated.
I probably would have got your phone number and made you wait outside.
Sat in a discreet corner of the restaurant with a trench coat and newspaper.
Oh, did you? Sitting at the end of the bar looking down, everyone's smiling at you. It's okay.
Oh, that wouldn't be fishy at all. But nonetheless, what I've learned along the way is when I ask for someone's heart, it's a big deal.
Yes.
It's a big deal because that's sacred space. It's something that isn't as available to just anyone, right? There's ways that we give our hearts away to our platonic friends, and that's significant. But when we give it to another person in a romantic zone, there's a deeper level that they have access that other people necessarily don't have. And so learning how to ask those questions that can enable you to create a space where your heart does feel safe is worthwhile investing in. Now, in my story, like, you might be thinking, oh man, you've got all these insights and wonderful, but my story is more akin to your husband's, your ex-husband now. I was the one that cheated on my wife as well, too.
You did?
Absolutely. I was the one. So, again, that's an important part. Like, the disbelief in your voice is quite telling, because you're like, how could you? Like, I had higher assessment of you based on your perspectives. Yeah, here's where I'm at now. It wasn't always where I was. So I know what that currency is to burn someone else, and that's why I say, like, I don't...
Are you friends with her?
Yes.
So does she understand this new you?
The conversation I've had with her is the fact that we're still cordial in the way that we are is a huge part because of her graciousness. She's probably number 2 in my life for significant individuals that I highly esteem. We're not going to get back together. We're divorced now.
Yeah.
We co-parent very well together. But a huge part has been because of her. When people say, how could anyone divorce you? I'm like, you don't know my story. And in my story, I play the antagonist. She was the protagonist. She's an amazing individual. So that's a sense I always want to honor her, not just because I have to from one of the kids. It's just because
is she the mother of your children?
She is.
Well,
absolutely.
I respect you.
Absolutely. But all that to say, part of the narrative for me with her is I will totally understand if I never ever get your forgiveness. I totally get that. Like, that's that's something that I'm open to the acknowledging for sure. But as far as I'm concerned, in this story here, you are the angel in essence, So I relate to cheaters. Does that make sense? I understand the motivating. Like, I come from that side of the tracks, if you will. And coming from that side of the tracks, I mean, I'm really sad that my story of evolution. I really appreciate, Darilyn, where I've arrived personally.
Okay, you don't seem like that person now. Would you do it again?
No.
Yeah.
Now the way I say it is, there are some lessons that I don't want to learn twice.
Yes.
And this is one of them.
And
this is like solidly one of them. So even now, as I am out there meeting and open to a relationship, there are things that I lock in solidly that say, hey, before any emotional entanglements ever happen here, you're going to know my whole story. So you can determine if I'm the right fit for you. Full transparency, disclosure at the outset. And this is just my gift and my way of saying, I want to care for your heart even before we ever even before you ever consider giving your heart, and that is by way of saying, I don't ever want to be participating in hurting someone the way I've hurt not only my wife, my kids as well, my ex-wife I should say, and even my community. You know, there's a lot of people that I really hurt along. Yeah, yes. I know what that's like to come from that angle, and so as much as I hate that it had to happen, and the collateral was these dear people in my life. Yeah. In some sense, there's also a bit of gratitude in that I can talk to those who are in this zone to say, in the midst of your messiness, in the midst of the harm that you're causing, you're not a write-off. Yeah. And here's how you can still find value even while you look for a way back to a path of integrity.
You know what? I cheated as well, like a million years ago. Mm-hmm. And the hurt I caused, which made me hurt, I would never do it again. Sure. And I mean, I was young and, you know, not smart. Yeah. But I'm the same. Like I could not ever go that path again. There's so many things I would do to not walk excuse me, that path. Yeah. And there's a saying that I always follow. The measure of a man is not upon his mistake, it's how he fixes it.
I like that.
Because we're human, we err. Yeah. That is who we are, unfortunately.
By blueprint, yes. And so we acknowledge that.
Are you going to be a serial cheater and just use and abuse people? Or are you going to realize the level of pain, you know, and do something about it? And ask for forgiveness. Absolutely. Change your values.
Absolutely.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
There's a difference.
I'm going to ask you one final question just as we get to the airport here. This one here, I want to preface by saying I would encourage you, before I even ask it, to say no if that's your instinctual response, gut-wise. And I say that because in this culture, we don't make it safe to say no. People feel obligated to say yes, you know, even though it's like, not. So I'm looking for the hell yes or the hell no kind of response. So when I don't do Uber, you're asking, what else do you do? There's more to this than you did. So one of the things I'm invested in personally in my life right now is yes, this is my full-time job, but I also love inspiring and equipping minds on the internet with great ideas, great ideologies of what could be. One of the things I love doing is sharing conversations like this on the internet, but I never share conversations unless I have explicit consent that is like enthusiastic. So I would love to share like this conversation again, just because I'm thinking of people who could really benefit from this substance we talked about. But the whole premise is they can do without this conversation, especially if your response is, I don't feel comfortable with that. And so I guess that's the request I'd ask. If you're open, would you be
100% open?
You'd be open, okay.
Because here's what, you know, and I've always wanted.
Yeah.
What I went through, I never ever thought there was that, for me, that level of pain. There was that, because there's children involved, grandchildren involved. Yeah. Like I lost a lot, and he had cheated years ago. I forgave him. I did the work. Now looking back, he didn't. He waited for me to do the work. So there's the difference. Right?
I see that. Yeah.
He just waited, and he would say, "Well, I'll just wait."
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing?
Right.
Right. And it was nothing, unfortunately.
Right.
But I so have wanted to share my story and talk to other people, because there were times I didn't think I'd make it through the day. The pain's that deep, but you do. And you keep doing the work and do every day. And I did like so much readings. I had great therapists, great friends, and you do move forward from it. But in that pain, I wish I had someone to turn to that had just been through it as well. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I get that, yeah.
So yes, share my story. It's a big story. Share it. Because see, the thing was, my ex now, Dean, he turned very cold after. So he almost made me feel like during the divorce and everything,
you're the one.
like I had done something wrong. And I'm like, I've given you the fastest divorce on the planet. I've moved on. I've bought my own place. I've done everything as fast as I can. He claims he still doesn't have anyone else. He's against relationships. It's too much work. Okay, whatever. Anyways, that's not my concern anymore. But he still hasn't done the work. So he's going to do it again.
Right.
And he's not going to open up. But he comes from that kind of background.
Right.
Right? So what you were talking about all this stuff, you have to look at all that stuff. The history. The you need to, and I guarantee he doesn't. He won't talk about it with anybody. You know?
If I can leave you with just a couple of parting considerations as well.
Yes.
Just because you're, I would say, relatively new and it's still a year in kind of thing. Part of this is also going to be able to start seeing yourself personally on your own personal level with a sense of worth for you, aside from him. Just because there's been a connection that's still being relinquished, right? So that you can see yourself as an individual on your own, and an individual whose worth isn't tied in any way with this connection that didn't work out. A lot of people who are going through something like this, they feel the loss of their worth as well because now they didn't follow through on this one here, you know? So what does it look like for you now to conceptualize and maybe look for this in this trip that you're on? In this context, how can I start reclaiming for myself that I'm worthwhile apart from anyone else? That I don't need any other relationship to define my sense of worth? Does this make sense? That you're already like as an individual, like set apart. It's always been there. It just probably wasn't seen. And so to be able to reacquaint with yourself with that sense of I'm worthwhile because I am me, not because I'm attached to anyone else. And in this zone of exploration of who you are as a new person all over again, it's a wonderful opportunity to step in and feel into that. But it's just that sense of seeing yourself and saying, yeah, like regardless of me figuring stuff out and not knowing the answers, I'm so glad that I'm starting with the premise that I'm so full of worth right now as I presently am. So that's probably like a frontier that I would encourage you to sort of spend some time meditating on, and maybe even accessing resources. There's wonderful videos online that you can search up saying, how do I gain this sense of worthwhileness? Because when you do that, you win back your superpower of being able to see the world on your terms, not you on theirs. Just an encouragement that way.
It is.
But thank you for sharing your story, though, Darilyn.
Well, this happened for a reason. This is freaky, man.
I'm glad we had the chance. Let me help you grab your bags here.
Amazing.
If you're open to it, I'd love to give you a hug as well, too. That was really sweet. I was just telling her at the very end, she's gorgeous, she's beautiful, she's attractive. But to look for the individuals in her life who are going to see her on the inside, for her beauty on the inside, that takes work. That takes some investment of energy. So I hope you guys are blessed by that. I totally was. Again, so sacred, so meaningful, so powerful, right? But I'm glad you guys got to be a part of that. I'll see you in the next video.